It was 2 a.m., and the security cameras inside the Collins mansion were silently recording something no one was supposed to see. In the darkness, a shadow moved slowly toward the kitchen, soft steps, shaky breathing, as if hiding a secret. Billionaire Henry Collins, who barely ever checked his cameras, suddenly opened the live feed after a random sensor alert, and what he saw froze him in shock. There was his maid, Elena, quietly opening the fridge, packing food into a small plate, constantly looking over her shoulder like someone terrified of being caught. Henry's blood started boiling. Someone was stealing from his house. His maid? But the real shock came seconds later, when Henry noticed Elena wasn't eating anything herself. Instead, she slipped the plate under her jacket and quietly left through the back door. At 2 a.m, carrying food. But for who? And why in secret? Before we go any further, let me pause this story right here and ask you something very important, because what you're about to watch isn't just a story, it's a lesson about life, humanity, and the way destiny tests us when we least expect it. So tell me in the comments right now, which city are you watching this video from? I genuinely want to know where my amazing audience is tuning in. Whether you're watching from Mumbai, Lahore, Karachi, Delhi, Dubai, London, or anywhere else, drop the name of your city below. And yes, before we start the real story, do one thing for me, backhand index pointing right, subscribe to the channel, because trust me, the story you're about to hear is nothing like the usual fairy tales. This one will twist your heart, shake your emotions, and make you question how far a person can go for love and survival. Now listen closely. This isn't a fantasy. This isn't a made-up fairy tale. It's the kind of story that could be happening right next to you, in your own neighborhood, without anyone ever knowing. A story about a billionaire who thought he had everything: money, power, luxury, success. Yet deep down, he was a broken soul carrying scars no one could see. And a maid, who looked ordinary from the outside, but inside her lived a silent storm: fear, hunger, desperation, and a love so powerful that she risked everything just to protect the one person she cared about more than her own life. Are you ready? Then sit back, turn the volume up. Because from this moment onward, every second of this story will take you deeper than you expect. It all began on a cold winter night, one of those nights when everything in the Collins mansion felt frozen, silent, almost haunted by memories no one wanted to talk about. Henry Collins was sitting alone in his gigantic study room, surrounded by antique books, dim lamps, and portraits of ancestors who stared at him as if judging every breath he took. He didn't like nights. Nights reminded him of loneliness. But that night, something was different. A soft beep echoed from the security panel near his desk, motion detected inside the house. Normally, an alert like this would instantly bring 10 security guards running, but tonight, Henry reacted first. He pressed the screen, slightly annoyed, assuming it was just a cat or maybe one of the guards patrolling. But the moment the live camera opened, his eyes widened. Inside the fancy kitchen, his maid, Elena, tiptoed like a frightened thief. She wasn't cleaning, she wasn't working, she was stealing food. Henry leaned forward, shock building inside him. He watched closely as she took bread, soup, and a few fruits, then carefully hid everything under her coat. She moved like someone who had done this many times before, quick, practiced, terrified. For a moment, Henry felt pure anger. How dare someone steal from him? In his house? But something else caught his attention. Elena wasn't eating anything herself. She just packed everything, and quietly slipped toward the back exit. Henry whispered to himself, confused, where is she going? He could have stopped her right there, ordered guards, confronted her, fired her. But something inside him, maybe suspicion, maybe curiosity, maybe intuition, made him do something he had never done before. He called the head of security and said softly, "Don't stop her. Follow her." The guards followed discreetly. Elena walked fast, her shoulders trembling from the cold, the food shaking inside her coat. She crossed the main street, took a narrow alley, climbed broken stairs, and entered an old, abandoned apartment building, bare walls, broken windows, the kind of place nobody would believe a human could live. Henry listened through the headset as guards reported quietly, "Sir, she entered what seems like a deserted flat, windows covered with newspapers, looks extremely unsafe." Henry didn't speak for a few seconds. Then he said something that surprised even himself, "I'm coming there." Within minutes, his car arrived without sirens, without lights, without noise. He walked up the stairs slowly, the smell of mold and wet walls suffocating him. Every step felt heavier than the last. He felt like he was walking into a dark secret, even darker than the cold night outside. The guard gently pushed the rusty door, and when it opened, the sight inside struck Henry like lightning. There was a small girl, maybe 7, maybe 8, her tiny body wrapped in an old blanket, pale face, weak breathing, eyes closed like she was too tired even to dream. Elena placed the food beside her and whispered, "Sweetheart, wake up. I brought dinner." Henry froze. He wasn't expecting this. Suddenly the girl opened her eyes, slow, tired, and whispered, "Mom. I'm still cold." "Mom?" Henry's heartbeat stumbled. Elena turned around, startled, her face filled with shock and fear. "Sir, please, please don't fire me. I know I did wrong, but I had no choice. My daughter, she hasn't eaten properly in days." Her voice broke. Henry looked around, no furniture, no heater, nothing but an old blanket and one small lamp flickering like a dying candle. Elena continued, crying, "We escaped from war. I lost my husband on the border, we came here for safety, but medicine, food, it's too expensive. I'm trying. I really am, but my daughter." Her words drowned into tears. Henry didn't reply. He just stared at the little girl, her ribs visible, eyes sunken, lips dry as if life itself was slipping away. Something inside Henry cracked. He felt as if the icy walls he'd built over the years suddenly started melting, slowly, painfully. The guard whispered, "Sir, should we call the police?" Henry shouted, "No." He rushed forward and said, "We are taking her to the hospital. Now." Elena panicked, "No, please, if they take her away because I'm poor, please sir, she's all I have." Her fear wasn't about losing her job, her fear was about losing her child. Henry spoke firmly, "I'm not taking her away from you. I'm trying to save her life." Within minutes, they reached the emergency entrance. Doctors rushed in, lifting the weak little girl onto the hospital bed. Elena held her hand, trembling, whispering prayers under her breath. Doctors examined her quickly. The senior doctor came out with a serious expression and said, "Her condition is critical. She's severely malnourished and has a lung infection. We'll do whatever we can, but she needs urgent treatment." Elena collapsed onto the chair, sobbing uncontrollably. Henry stood helpless, realizing this wasn't theft, this was survival. And for the first time in decades, tears gathered in his eyes. He looked up, staring at the glowing hospital lights as if talking to someone invisible, "Don't punish this child for being poor." Something about that sentence felt strangely personal, as if he wasn't just saying it for Elena's daughter, but for someone from his own past. Elena looked up at him through tears, whispering, "Thank you, sir." Henry shook his head slowly, voice cracking, "Don't thank me. I should have known sooner." A monitor beeped sharply from inside the room. Nurses rushed in. Elena's breath stopped. Henry's heart froze. They both stared at the door, waiting, fearing, praying. And just before the door closed, a faint alarm echoed from the machines connected to the girl's fragile body. Everything turned silent. Black screen. To be continued. The door swung shut, and with it, the world of that little girl disappeared behind a thick wall of fear and medical urgency. Elena stood frozen, breath breaking in her chest, fingers clenched painfully together. She whispered one sentence again and again, please, 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 don't take her away, don't take her. Henry felt helpless. He had spent billions on companies, investments, extravagant properties, but in that moment, he would have given everything just to guarantee the life of someone he didn't even know existed a few minutes ago. Minutes passed like hours. Elena kept pacing the hallway, one step forward, one step back, her eyes swollen from crying. Every now and then, she pressed her palms against her face, as if trying to hold herself from screaming out loud. Henry stepped closer and said quietly, "Sit, Elena, you need to rest." But she shook her head fiercely. "No, if I sit, I'll break. If I break, she'll feel it. I have to stay strong." Her words had a weight Henry had never known in his own life. He sat down, staring at the floor tiles, each tile reflecting flashes of his childhood. A hospital. Machines. A small boy lying in a hospital bed while wealthy parents signed checks but never held his hand. He remembered the loneliness of those nights, the sterile smell of medicines, the cold touch of stainless steel, the silence of waiting. Somehow, the situation felt painfully familiar. He took a deep breath. "Elena, why didn't you tell anyone?" She finally broke down and admitted, "I was afraid. Everyone always told me, people like us shouldn't exist in places like this. Rich homes don't keep poor problems. I just wanted to work, quietly, without becoming a burden." A heavy silence settled between them. Then, the doors opened. A doctor walked toward them, removing his gloves, expression serious but not hopeless. Elena ran forward. "Doctor? Please, tell me, is she?" The doctor placed a hand on her shoulder and said gently, "She's stable for now. But she'll need treatment and care, possibly long-term medical support. Her lungs are weak, her body lacks nutrition, and her immune system is very fragile." Elena felt her knees weaken. "Please save her, she's all I have." Henry stepped in, almost without thinking, "Whatever treatment she needs. I'll handle everything. No matter the cost." The doctor nodded respectfully. "We'll do our best, Mr. Collins." Elena's eyes widened. "Sir, why would you? You owe us nothing." He looked at her deeply. "No child deserves to suffer because adults failed them." Elena covered her face and cried silently. Hours passed. Nurses came and went. Forms were signed. Tests were taken. And slowly, the little girl's breathing steadied. Finally, she was moved into a recovery room. A small, warm room with monitors and soft lights. Elena sat beside her daughter, holding her tiny hand like it was the only thing keeping her alive. Henry stood quietly in the corner, watching. Elena looked up, voice trembling with gratitude and sadness mixed together. "I didn't steal because I wanted to. I stole because I was afraid she'd die if she didn't eat. Some nights, I didn't eat just so she could have something." Henry swallowed painfully. "What about your past, your husband?" She hesitated, then sighed. "War took him. We tried crossing the border together, but he never made it. I never saw his body. I keep telling myself he'll walk through that door someday, but deep down, I know." Her tears spilled again. "I came here because I thought, maybe this country would save us. But survival here is harder than the war. Hunger kills silently." Henry sat beside her, something he had never done with any employee before. "You shouldn't apologize. You're a mother. A mother does anything to protect her child." His voice cracked unexpectedly, surprising both of them. Elena slowly asked, "Sir, did you ever lose someone?" His eyes lowered. "Yes." That one word carried oceans of pain. She waited, but Henry didn't continue. He wasn't ready. Instead, he said gently, "Tonight, let me stay. You look exhausted. Get some rest. She started to refuse, but Henry insisted. Please. She's safe right now. Let me watch over her. Elena hesitated, then slowly closed her eyes. The exhaustion swallowed her almost immediately. Henry sat near the sleeping child, watching the steady rise and fall of her chest, the tiny fingers curled like fragile petals. He whispered, "Little one, you're stronger than any of us." He suddenly remembered something, a memory he had buried deep, his own mother whispering to him in his hospital bed, "Stay strong, Henry. You have to fight, even when I'm not here." He blinked away the memory quickly. Around 3 a.m., the girl stirred weakly, opening her eyes just a little. "Mom." Henry leaned forward gently. "She's right here, sleeping. You're safe." The little girl looked at him with tired confusion. "Who are you?" Henry smiled softly, maybe for the first time in years. "Someone who wants to see you get better." Her lips moved slowly. "Thank you." Then she closed her eyes again. And in that moment, Henry felt something shifting inside him, like a locked door opening after years of silence. Later, Elena woke up suddenly and rushed to her daughter. Henry stood up and said quietly, "She's doing better. The doctors are hopeful." Elena, still emotional, asked, "Sir, can I ask you something?" Henry nodded. "Why are you helping us so much?" His eyes darkened, voice deep, almost painful. "Because once, someone helped me when no one else did. And I never got the chance to repay them." Elena stared at him with quiet understanding. Before she could say anything more, the doctor entered again, but this time, his expression wasn't comforting. He said, "Mr. Collins, there's something else we discovered in the tests. Something you need to know." Elena gasped softly. "What do you mean? What happened now?" The doctor took a breath, ready to reveal something unexpected. "It's about your daughter's condition, and her medical history." Henry felt his heart drop. "What are you saying?" The doctor's next sentence shook both of them. "She isn't just sick because of malnutrition. There's something else in her blood reports, something abnormal, something we must discuss, immediately." Elena covered her mouth in shock. Henry leaned forward, tense, eyes wide. "What did you find?" The room seemed to shrink as the doctor spoke. The soft beeping of the monitor, the hum of the air conditioner, the faint rustle of sheets, everything faded into the background. Only one sentence echoed in the air. "There's something abnormal in her blood reports." Elena's knees turned weak. She gripped the side of the bed. Eyes red, voice trembling. "What do you mean abnormal? Is she dying?" The doctor quickly shook his head. "No. At least not right now. But she has a serious underlying condition. Something that should have been diagnosed years ago." Henry stepped closer, his face tense. "What condition?" The doctor looked between the two of them, then gestured for them to follow him outside the room, away from the little girl's ears. They stepped into the corridor. The lights here were brighter, harsher, showing every line of worry on Elena's face, every scar of exhaustion on Henry's. The doctor opened a file and began, "Her tests show she has a rare immune disorder. It affects her body's ability to fight infections. That's why a normal cold becomes dangerous for her, why a simple flu can turn into a lung infection. She's been fighting without armor." Elena's hands flew to her mouth. "Oh my God, all this time, all these fevers. I thought it was just weakness, just hunger." The doctor's voice softened. "You did what you could. This isn't your fault. Most parents in your situation wouldn't even know such a condition exists." Henry's eyes narrowed, his jaw clenched as if he were hearing something he'd heard before, in another lifetime. "What is the name of the condition?" The doctor hesitated, then said, "It's a rare form of primary immunodeficiency. Hardly any cases. Most hospitals never see even one patient like this. Henry felt his heart skip a beat. The word rare stabbed through him like a blade of memory. He whispered, primary immunodeficiency. The doctor nodded slowly, watching Henry carefully now. Yes. Why? Does it sound familiar to you, Mr. Collins? For a brief moment, Henry's tough, controlled expression cracked, just a fraction, but enough. He looked away, staring down the corridor at nothing. I had something like this when I was a child. Elena looked at him in shock. You? The doctor's eyebrows rose. That explains a lot. He stepped closer to Henry. You were treated in St. Matthew's Children's Hospital, correct? Nearly 3 decades ago? Henry's eyes shot up toward him, stunned. How do you know that? The doctor gave a faint, almost nostalgic smile. Because, Mr. Collins, I was a young intern back then. I remember a boy. Weak, alone in a big room, hooked up to machines. Wealthy parents who could pay every bill, but rarely showed up. That boy's name was Henry Collins. The corridor fell into a heavy silence. Henry froze, trapped between the past and the present. He could almost smell the antiseptic of that old hospital, hear the echo of his own childish coughs, feel the emptiness of nights when no one sat beside his bed. Elena looked at him like she was seeing him for the first time, not as a billionaire, but as a broken human being. You were sick like my daughter, she whispered. Henry nodded slowly, swallowing hard. I almost died. Many times. They told me my body couldn't fight like other children. Doctors did everything. They gave me treatments, transfusions, experimental drugs. My parents signed checks and flew to business meetings. His voice grew quieter. I was surrounded by nurses, but I never had what your daughter has tonight, someone holding her hand and crying for her. Elena's eyes filled with tears again. The doctor cleared his throat gently. Mr. Collins, you recovered because you had access to the best treatment available in the world. Back then, it was new, risky, extremely expensive. Now, medicine has advanced. We can help her, but it will still require long-term care, specialized medicine, and possibly a bone marrow transplant in the future. Elena whispered, I can't ever afford that. I can't even afford basic antibiotics sometimes. Before she could spiral, Henry spoke, his voice firm now. She will get everything she needs. Every test, every medicine, every procedure. Elena shook her head weakly. Sir, I can't let you. You didn't let me, Henry interrupted softly. You forced me to remember who I used to be. The doctor looked at Henry with a mixture of respect and relief. If we begin treatment early and consistently, she has a real chance at living a normal life. But we also need to run tests to see if there's a suitable donor match in case we need that transplant later. Elena blinked away tears. You mean, someone who matches her blood and tissue type? Yes, the doctor said. Close relatives are usually the best chance. But in your case? He hesitated. In my case what? Elena asked. The doctor exhaled slowly. We ran an extended panel on her blood because of some unusual markers. There's something interesting. Her markers resemble a case we had on file from years ago. His eyes briefly met Henry's. Henry frowned. What are you trying to say, doctor? The doctor shut the file. Nothing certain. Not yet. It could be coincidence. Science is precise, but matches like this can still happen by chance. We'll repeat the tests before jumping to conclusions. Elena, already overwhelmed, shook her head. I don't understand. It just means, the doctor replied carefully, that your daughter's condition is almost identical to Mr. Collins' childhood case, down to very rare patterns. That could make him, in some ways, uniquely suitable to help guide her treatment and maybe even contribute to future decisions medically. But we're not at that stage yet. Henry stayed quiet, processing. Elena stared at Henry as if fate itself had walked into her life disguised as a man she just worked for. "So you're saying," she whispered slowly, "that the man who caught me stealing food is the same kind of patient my daughter needed to cross paths with to live?" The doctor said softly, "Sometimes life brings the right people together in very strange ways." Henry let out a shaky breath. "Doctor, do whatever you must. Use my name, my funds, my connections. If there's any treatment trial, any specialist in any country, I want her to have access to it." The doctor nodded. "I'll start arranging consultations with top immunologists. We'll need frequent follow-ups. This is not a few days issue. It's a long fight." When the doctor walked away, silence wrapped around the two of them. Elena finally said in a low voice, "All this time, I thought rich people never understood what pain feels like. I thought you'd see me as a thief. Fire me. Throw us out. Maybe even call the police." Henry looked straight ahead at the little glass window of the door, where her daughter lay, surrounded by machines that beeped like fragile hope. "I did see you as a thief, for a second," he admitted. "Because that's what the world taught me, everyone wants something from you. Everyone uses you, lies to you, pretends to care. But when I saw her..." His voice broke slightly. "I didn't see a thief. I saw myself." Elena covered her face, sobbing silently. "I cleaned your floors, polished your furniture, washed your dishes, and every night I went home to a child who barely had enough to survive. I felt so small in your mansion. So invisible." Henry replied quietly, "Maybe that's my real failure. I built a house so big. I couldn't see the pain hiding inside it." Her tears slowed as she stared at him. Behind the expensive suit, behind the billionaire's reputation, there was just a wounded boy who had grown up without hugs. "Sir," she whispered, "thank you, for seeing us now." He didn't reply with words. Instead, he reached into his coat, took out his phone, and made a call to his personal assistant. "From tomorrow," he said, voice firm, "find a proper apartment near the hospital. Warm, furnished, safe. It will be under my name, but Elena and her daughter will live there. Also, coordinate with the doctors. Any bills, any tests, any medicines, everything comes to my office." Elena gasped. "Sir. This is too much." He turned to her with quiet determination. "No. This is the first time in my life I'm spending money on something that actually matters." Her eyes flooded again, but this time, there was a light in them, a small, fragile hope. Inside the room, her daughter shifted slightly, a faint smile flickering on her lips even in sleep, as if her body already knew that life was finally about to change. Time moved strangely after that night. Days felt longer, filled with hospital corridors, medical reports, new treatments, and sleepless nights. Elena barely left her daughter's side. Henry visited every single day, sometimes early morning before meetings, sometimes late night after the world assumed the billionaire was sleeping peacefully in his golden mansion. But the truth was, he wasn't sleeping at all. Something inside him had awakened. Something buried. Something painful. Every time he saw the little girl fighting for breath, he saw himself, the same pale skin, the same weak lungs, the same fear behind closed eyelids. One evening, while Henry stood by her bedside, Elena spoke quietly, "You know, she hasn't smiled in weeks. I don't remember the last time she actually felt safe." Henry thought for a moment, then reached inside his coat. "Well, I might have something." He pulled out a small, elegant box. When he opened it, inside was a tiny music box ballerina, old, golden, but beautiful, moving slowly as a soft melody played. Elena's eyes widened. "Oh my, it's beautiful. Henry whispered, it belonged to someone, from my childhood. Elena looked at him, curious. You kept something from when you were sick? Henry looked away, eyes distant. I kept everything I had, which wasn't much. That music box kept me company in hospital nights. I've never shown it to anyone. Elena watched the ballerina turn gracefully. You're giving it to her? He nodded slowly. I want her to have something that helped me believe I could survive. Suddenly, Elena's daughter opened her eyes just a little, hearing the melody. Her lips curved into a weak smile. And for the first time since Henry had met her, he saw light in her expression. Elena covered her mouth, whispering, she smiled, she smiled. Henry felt something warm spread inside him, a feeling he hadn't known in decades. But happiness never comes without interruption. A sudden knock on the door brought tension into the room. Henry turned, and his personal assistant stood there, pale and nervous. Sir, you need to step out for a moment. Henry frowned slightly. I'm busy. The assistant whispered urgently, Sir, it's regarding the board. There's been a situation. Elena looked worried. You should go. We'll be fine. Henry forced a reassuring smile and stepped outside. The hallway was cold, too bright, too quiet. His assistant walked beside him, whispering. Sir, the board is questioning your sudden expenses. They're asking why company funds are being used for personal matters. Henry stopped abruptly. Company funds? Who approved using company money? You did, sir, the assistant whispered nervously. You requested immediate transfers for medical bills under corporate emergency accounts. Henry exhaled sharply. I meant MY accounts. The assistant gulped. They're already preparing a meeting. They say investors are concerned, and a few executives think you've become unstable. Henry's eyes hardened. Let them think whatever they want. Set the meeting for tomorrow. I'll deal with them. But as the assistant walked away, Henry leaned against the wall and closed his eyes. He hadn't expected resistance, not now, not when a child's life was involved. After a few moments, he walked back into the room, forcing his voice calm. Just business things. Nothing important. But Elena noticed the tension in his eyes. You look upset. Is it because of us? He shook his head quickly. No. Never. She hesitated, then spoke gently. People don't like when powerful men suddenly care about powerless people. It makes them question everything. Henry froze. Her words hit him harder than she realized. Elena continued, when someone like you helps someone like me, the world starts asking why. He turned slowly toward her. What do you think? Elena took a deep breath. I think maybe you're trying to save someone from your past, through us. Henry didn't answer. He couldn't. Silence settled between them. Only the soft melody from the music box filled the room. Later that night, Henry left the hospital with a heavy heart. His driver, noticing his expression, asked carefully, Long day, sir? Henry stared out of the car window, voice distant. It's been a long year. But the moment he reached home, he felt something was wrong. The front gates were open, and unfamiliar cars lined the driveway. Inside, his board members sat waiting, faces tense, cold, judgmental. One of them stood. Henry, we need answers. He sighed. This really isn't a good time. Another member snapped, you transferred hundreds of thousands. Insurance, medical equipment, apartment leases, without authorization. Henry's jaw tightened. I don't need authorization to help someone whose life depends on it. The board exchanged cold looks. A senior executive stood up. Henry, you're our majority shareholder, yes, but the company cannot support your sudden, emotional decisions. And investors are demanding clarity. Henry's voice turned sharp. I didn't use company money. Correct the accounts. Transfer everything to my personal funds. The board seemed thrown off for a moment, but then someone asked the question Henry dreaded. Why are you doing this, Henry? Who is this child? Why risk reputation, investors, and money over a maid's daughter? Henry's face darkened. Because someone once saved me when no one else cared. The room went silent. Finally, he said coldly, if anyone here has a problem with me being human, resign. Otherwise, get out of my house. Angry murmurs rose, but no one dared defy him. They left reluctantly, leaving Henry standing alone, breathing heavy, hands shaking. He walked to his study, opened a drawer, and pulled out an old photo. A picture of a little boy in a hospital bed, holding that same music box ballerina, frail, pale, weak. And standing beside him, a smiling woman in a nurse uniform. Henry whispered, "You were the only one who cared." He closed his eyes. Flashback hits, machines, pain, loneliness. He whispered again, voice broken, "I wish I could thank you, one more time." Suddenly, his phone buzzed, Elena calling. His heart stopped for a second. When he answered, her voice was shaking, terrified. "Sir, something's happening. The machines, they're beeping again." Henry froze. "What do you mean?" "She's struggling to breathe, please hurry." Henry ran toward the door, voice cracking. "I'm on my way." And as he drove through the night, sirens off, heart pounding, the same childhood fear overwhelmed him. What if he was too late, again? Henry didn't remember most of the drive. All he remembered was the red lights passing, the shaking in his hands, and one terrifying thought repeating over and over. Please don't let history repeat itself. He burst into the hospital, ran through the corridor, ignoring nurses calling after him. When he reached the room, Elena stood beside her daughter, tears streaming down her face, while doctors surrounded the small bed. Machines beeped aggressively, oxygen mask adjusted, nurses pushing injections, emergency lights flashing red against the white walls. Henry felt the same childhood helplessness choking him. "What's happening?" he shouted. A doctor turned, sweaty and tense. She suddenly developed severe respiratory distress. Her lungs collapsed partially. "We're trying to stabilize her, but her body is too weak." Elena sobbed loudly, holding her daughter's tiny hand, whispering desperately, "Stay with me, baby, don't leave me, please." Then something unexpected happened. The little girl turned her head slightly, and opened her eyes, looking directly at Henry. Her breathing was shallow, voice barely audible. "Sir, don't cry." Henry's heart shattered. "I'm not crying, little one. I'm here with you. I'm right here." She blinked slowly, the tiniest smile in the world appearing on her lips. "You saved me." Elena collapsed onto Henry, crying hysterically. "She thinks alive because of you, please don't let her go." Henry wrapped an arm around Elena without thinking, trying to steady her trembling body even while his own heart was tearing apart. Doctors worked non-stop, oxygen increased, medication administered, machines adjusted. Then, slowly, painfully, the beeping sound steadied. The doctor sighed with relief. "She's stabilizing again. She's fighting." Elena fell to her knees, thanking God through uncontrollable sobs. Henry closed his eyes and finally breathed, feeling a flood of relief so powerful it almost hurt. After what felt like hours, doctors gave permission for Henry and Elena to re-enter the room. They sat in silence for a long time, Elena holding her daughter's hand, Henry sitting beside them, eyes red but calm. Finally, Henry spoke softly, "I've never been more afraid, not even as a child." Elena wiped her tears slowly. "You care about her like she's yours." Henry didn't answer. Elena hesitated, voice shaky but curious. Sir, why do I feel like this is more than kindness? Henry looked away. He wasn't ready. Later that night, when Elena finally fell asleep sitting beside her daughter, Henry stepped outside the room, only to find the same doctor waiting, holding a new file. Mr. Collins, he said quietly, we need to talk. Henry tensed immediately. What now? The doctor glanced back at the room, then spoke in a low voice. I repeated the tests. Twice. Henry's stomach dropped. And? The doctor handed him the file. These markers, the immune deficiency, the blood pattern, it matches yours almost perfectly. Henry froze. But the doctor wasn't finished. There's only one explanation for this level of genetic similarity. He paused, then said words Henry never imagined hearing. Mr. Collins, biologically, that little girl is related to you. Henry's entire world went silent. He stared at the doctor in stunned disbelief. What are you talking about? The doctor continued steadily, genetically, you're either her father, or, at the very least, you share direct family blood. Henry felt his chest tighten. No, that's not possible. I've never. The doctor raised a hand gently. I know this is shocking. But scientifically, it's undeniable. Henry barely whispered, how could she be related to me? The doctor took a slow breath. There's something you should see. Another old file was triggered when I ran the match. He opened a scanned document on the hospital tablet, a medical report from decades ago, signed under the name Nurse Isabella Collins. Henry's breath disappeared. My mother, he whispered. The doctor nodded. She was a registered bone marrow donor. During a refugee crisis 20 years ago, she volunteered to help children in critical condition, especially those suffering from primary immunodeficiency. She made several donations. Some of those children survived because of her. Henry stared at him, stunned, heart pounding. What are you saying, that Elena's daughter received my mother's cells? My mother's blood? The doctor nodded slowly. Yes. Your mother saved her life years before you ever met her. Henry felt tears burn inside him. His knees almost weakened. He whispered, she helped strangers, while she was alive. The doctor placed a gentle hand on Henry's shoulder. And now, decades later, her kindness has returned to you in the most unexpected way. Henry couldn't speak. He looked through the window, at the little girl breathing slowly, alive because his mother had saved her long before Henry even knew she existed. Elena had no idea. The little girl had no idea. And Henry only now understood God's mysterious way of returning love through paths no one could predict. The doctor said softly, Mr. Collins, you asked once why fate brought this child into your life. Maybe this is your answer. Henry whispered, no, this is my mother's answer. For the first time since his childhood, Henry wept. Tears of pain. Tears of memory. Tears of gratitude. He pressed a hand to the glass window, whispering, Mom, even after all these years, you're still saving me. Behind him, someone's soft voice spoke. Sir? Henry turned. Elena stood there, eyes red, face tired, but expression full of fear. What did the doctor say? What's wrong? Henry looked at her, unable to speak yet. He wasn't ready to break her heart or heal it with the truth, not tonight. So he just stepped close to her and whispered, she's going to need all of us. For the rest of her life. Elena nodded, tears filling her eyes again. And she'll have us. Henry looked back at the sleeping child. No matter what, he whispered. A promise. A bond. A miracle his mother left behind. Days passed, weeks passed. Elena's daughter slowly began recovering. She gained a little weight, her cheeks looked less pale, and for the first time, she laughed, just once, but that single laugh was enough to change the entire atmosphere around her. Elena smiled more too, not with certainty, but with hope. Hope is sometimes heavier than fear because it demands faith. Henry visited every day. Sometimes he brought books, sometimes toys, sometimes just silent company. But gradually, he became something more than a visitor, something more than a billionaire helping out of sympathy. He became a presence. A stability. A father figure, even if no one said the word aloud. One afternoon, the doctor approached them with a serious tone. "We need to talk about long-term care. She can't live in unstable conditions again. Heating, nutrition, routine, clean environment, everything matters now." Elena's face fell. "But I can't afford." Henry spoke gently, "You're not doing this alone." Elena looked down. "Sir. I don't know how to accept so much help. People like us aren't used to being protected." Henry replied softly, "And people like me aren't used to being needed." Silence. The kind that says more than words ever could. A few days later, Elena and her daughter moved into a warm, furnished apartment close to the hospital. Everything paid for. Everything prepared. A fridge full of healthy food. New clothes. Toys. Medicines. When Elena opened the door, she stood frozen. "Sir, this is too much." Henry shook his head. "No. This is the minimum someone like you deserved long ago." Her eyes filled with tears. She hugged him, without thinking. He froze for a moment, then slowly, awkwardly, hugged her back. Something he once thought his body had forgotten how to do. Weeks later, the girl was discharged. The hospital staff smiled, celebrated, even the doctor lifted her gently and said, "You're a fighter." But the real celebration was hidden inside Henry's heart, something healed inside him too. Time continued its gentle work. Henry started visiting the apartment often. Sometimes he brought groceries, sometimes flowers, sometimes nothing, just himself. Elena cooked for the first time in months. "Sir, taste this. I haven't cooked properly since my husband was alive." Henry took a spoonful, and paused. Tears rushed into his eyes unexpectedly. "It tastes like my childhood." Elena smiled softly. "So somewhere inside you, there is still a child." Henry whispered, "There always will be." Weeks later, during a routine checkup, the doctor pulled Henry aside. "Mr. Collins, her test results look much better. But, there's something else we should discuss now." Henry tensed. "What is it?" The doctor looked at him gently. "She will always need someone stable, someone responsible, someone who can handle medical emergencies, school, paperwork." Henry understood where this was going. Elena joined them slowly. "Doctor, are you asking what I think you are?" The doctor nodded. "You need legal guardianship arrangements. If anything happens, someone must be officially responsible." Elena looked terrified. "But I have nowhere else to go." Henry spoke immediately, "You have me." Elena gasped. "Sir, what are you saying?" Henry knelt down beside the little girl. "Sweetheart, would you like if I stayed in your life? For a long time?" The girl blinked, confused. "Like, forever?" Henry smiled warmly, "If you want that." She threw her arms around his neck. "Please don't ever leave us." Henry closed his eyes, "I'm never leaving." Later, when Elena and Henry stood alone near the apartment window, she whispered. "You could have just given us money and walked away, why did you stay?" Henry looked outside, "Because someone once saved me, just like your daughter. My mother donated bone marrow to children she didn't know. She saved lives quietly. And when she died, I felt like she took all her love with her." He turned to Elena, "But now I see she left her love in someone else, and somehow, God brought that love back to me. Tears streamed down Elena's cheeks. You're not just saving her, sir, you're saving yourself. Henry nodded slowly. Maybe God wanted us to find each other. Before you scroll away, just think for 5 seconds. If a billionaire, lost, lonely, broken inside, can stop for a poor maid and save a child, then what's stopping us from helping someone today? Maybe you can't save the world, but maybe someone's world can change because of you. Fire so right now, prove you're not just watching a story. Prove you feel it. Backhand index pointing down comment below, humanity still exists. If you believe kindness still matters. Backhand index pointing down share this video so someone else remembers that even a stranger's heart can save a life. Backhand index pointing down subscribe right now so you never miss these life-changing stories again, because somewhere out there, one more story is waiting to wake your humanity. And before you leave, remember this. Real heroes don't wear capes, they simply decide to care. See you in the next emotional story. Red Heart Fire.